Imagine, if you will, the world shrinking to the size of a small, rocky island. Your world bounded on sides by the vast, indifferent expanse of the Atlantic Ocean. It is the mid-19th century, a time when the seas are the lifeblood of commerce and communication, yet they are also a place of immense peril. Here on this granite outpost off the coast of New England, you are the solitary sentinel, the keeper of the light. Your existence is a quiet rhythm of duty, a life measured not in days or weeks, but in the steady, predictable cycles of the sun and the lamp. Your day begins not with the sun, but long before it. You awaken in the pre-dawn chill, the air in your small stone-built quarters thick with the scent of salt and damp stone. The fire in the hearth has dwindled to a soft orange glow, and the first order of business is to coax it back to life. You add a few pieces of carefully rationed firewood, listening to the satisfying crackle as the flames take hold. This small act, this simple creation of warmth and light, is a ritual that grounds you, a quiet defiance against the encroaching darkness that still blankets the world outside. Dressed in heavy wool trousers and a thick knitted sweater, you make your way from the keeper's house to the base of the lighthouse tower. The two are often connected by a covered walkway, a necessary shield against the ferocious storms that can lash this coast with little warning. The air outside is cold and sharp, filled with the clean, briny smell of the low tide. You can hear the gentle lapping of waves against the rocks below, a constant, soothing murmur that is the soundtrack to your life. It is a sound of immense power held in gentle restraint, a reminder of the ocean's dual nature, both creator and destroyer. You unlock the heavy oak door at the base of the tower, its iron hinges groaning in the quiet air. Inside, the lighthouse is a world of its own. The air is different here, cooler and still, carrying the faint metallic scent of oil and polished brass. A spiral staircase, its iron steps worn smooth by the countless ascents and descents of your predecessors, winds its way up into the darkness above. You begin your climb, your hand gliding along the cool, curved wall. Each step is deliberate, a familiar motion ingrained in your muscle memory. The climb is a form of meditation, a vertical pilgrimage you undertake each and every day. With each upward turn, the sounds of the sea below become more distant, replaced by the sound of your own steady breathing and the soft scuff of your boots on the iron stairs. You pass by the small, slit-like windows that punctuate the tower's ascent. Through them, you catch glimpses of the world outside beginning to stir. The deep, inky black of the night is slowly giving way to a soft, bruised purple on the eastern horizon. The stars, which had been your silent companions through the long watch, are beginning to fade, their brilliant light dimming in the face of the approaching dawn. You are in a space between worlds, suspended between the darkness of the night and the light of the new day, between the solid earth and the endless sky. Finally, you reach the top of the staircase and emerge into the lantern room. This is the heart of the lighthouse, a circular chamber encased in a cage of glass and iron, and at its center, the reason for your existence here, the magnificent Fresnel lens. It is a breathtaking sight, a beehive of crystal prisms and brass fittings, meticulously designed to capture and focus every single ray of light into a powerful, piercing beam. Even in its dormant state, the lens seems to possess a life of its own, its glass surfaces capturing the faint, ambient light and refracting it into 1,000 tiny rainbows. It is a marvel of 19th century engineering, a testament to the human desire to conquer the darkness. Your first task is to extinguish the lamp. The flame, which has burned faithfully throughout the night, is a large circular wick fueled by whale oil, or perhaps the newer, more refined kerosene. You carefully turn down the valve and the flame sputters and dies, plunging the lantern room into a momentary, profound Darkness. The silence that follows is absolute, broken only by the sigh of the wind against the glass. Panes. For a brief moment, the lighthouse is just a tower of stone, its purpose fulfilled for another. Night. Now the real work begins. The daily maintenance of the lens and the lamp is a meticulous, painstaking process, a ritual that cannot be rushed or neglected. Your life, and the lives of countless sailors you will never meet, depends on it. You begin by cleaning the lens, using a soft, lint-free cloth and a solution of spirits. You polish every single prism, every pane of glass, removing any soot or grime that may have accumulated during the night. This is not simply a matter of cleanliness, it is a matter of life and death. A single smudge, a speck of dust, could refract the light improperly, diminishing its intensity and rendering it invisible to a ship navigating a treacherous channel miles away. You work with a surgeon. Precision, your movements slow and deliberate. You know every curve, every angle of this magnificent machine. It is your silent, crystal partner in this solitary dance. As you clean, the sun begins its ascent, and the lantern room is flooded with the soft, golden light of dawn. The ocean, which had been a formless black void, is now revealed in all its glory. It is a vast, shimmering expanse of deep blue and green, its surface textured by the gentle morning breeze. You can see the distant coastline, a dark, jagged line separating the sea from the sky. You might see the sails of a fishing boat or the plume of smoke from a distant steamship, small signs of a world that continues to turn, largely unaware of your quiet, vital work. Once the lens is pristine, you turn your attention to the lamp itself. You trim the wick, ensuring it is perfectly level to produce a clean, even flame. You refill the oil reservoir, carefully measuring the correct amount. Every drop of oil is precious, delivered by a supply ship only a few times a year. Spilling even a small amount would be a costly mistake. You polish the brass fittings until they gleam, their warm, golden surfaces reflecting your own focused expression. This is not just a job, it is a sacred trust. You are the keeper of a flame, a modern-day Vestal virgin tending to a mechanical god. With the lens and lamp attended to, you must then clean the lantern room itself. You sweep the floor, dust the surfaces, and polish the inside of the great glass panes that protect the lens from the elements. Sometimes a bird, disoriented by the light, will have struck the glass during the night. It is a sad but necessary part of your duties to clear away the evidence of this fatal encounter, a stark reminder of the power of the light you command. The final task before you can descend for your morning meal is to wind the clockwork mechanism. This is the system of weights and pulleys that causes the lens to rotate, creating the lighthouse's unique, flashing signature. It is a heavy, laborious task. You crank a large handle, and with a series of loud clicks and groans, a heavy weight is drawn up the central column of the tower. This weight, slowly descending over the course of the day and night, will provide the energy to turn the massive lens. It is a simple, ingenious system powered by gravity itself. As you complete this final task, you pause for a moment, your work done. The sun is now fully above the horizon, and the world is bathed in the clear, bright light of a new day. You look out at the endless ocean, at the vast, empty sky. You are alone, but you are not lonely. You are a part of something larger than yourself, a vital link in a chain that connects land and sea, man and nature. Your life is one of profound simplicity, yet it is also one of immense importance. But as you stand there in the silent, sunlit lantern room, a thought drifts into your mind. You have prepared the light for the coming night, but the day itself stretches before you, a long, quiet expanse of time. How does one fill the hours on this isolated rock, surrounded by the ceaseless motion of the sea? What does a lighthouse keeper do when his primary duty is done, and all that is left is the quiet, waiting space between one sunset and the next. The question of how to fill the day hangs in the sunlit air of the lantern room, a silent counterpoint to the morning's completed rituals. The descent from the tower is slower, more thoughtful than the ascent. You are no longer climbing towards a duty, but returning to a life. The spiral staircase unwinds before you, and with each step down, the world of the lighthouse keeper reasserts itself, a world not just of grand, vital machinery, but of small, mundane, and deeply human routines. The answer to your unspoken question lies in this very rhythm, in the quiet, deliberate occupation of time that defines your existence on this isolated perch. Back in your small, whitewashed stone cottage, the fire you stoked earlier now burns with a steady, comforting warmth. The main room serves as your kitchen, your dining room, and your study. It is a space of profound practicality. Every object has a purpose, a place. There is no room for clutter, no space for the superfluous. A sturdy wooden table and chair stand in the center of the room. Along one wall, shelves are neatly stacked with tinned goods, sacks of flour and beans, and a few precious jars of preserves, a sweet reminder of a distant summer garden. Your breakfast is a simple affair, a bowl of hot oatmeal perhaps, or a piece of hardtack softened in coffee. The coffee itself is a luxury, strong and black, its bitter taste, sharp, welcome sensation that cuts through the morning's lingering chill. You eat slowly, methodically, savoring the warmth of the food and the quiet solitude of the moment. From your small window, you can see the ocean, its surface now a dazzling sheet of silver under the high morning sun. There are no other sounds but the crackle of the fire and the ever-present murmur of the sea. After your meal, the day's secondary tasks begin. These are the duties that ensure not just the functioning of the light but the functioning of your life. First, you attend to the official logbook. This is a thick, leather-bound volume, its pages filled with the neat, spidery script of your predecessors. It is a document of immense importance, a legal record of the lighthouse's operation. You open it to a new page. Dip your pen in ink and begin to write. You note the date, the time you extinguished the light, the state of the weather, wind direction, cloud cover, the temperament of the sea. You record the amount of oil consumed during the night, the maintenance performed on the lens, and any unusual occurrences. Most days, the entry is the same, a simple declaration that all is well. Light extinguished at sunrise, lens and lantern cleaned, all in order. But this book is more than just a record of tasks. It is a silent history of this place, a chronicle of storms and shipwrecks, of long, lonely winters and brief, glorious summers. As you write, you feel a connection to the men who came before you, their lives like yours, governed by the turning of the earth and the burning of a lamp. You are a link in an unbroken chain, a custodian of a sacred duty. With the logbook updated, you turn your attention to the weather. You are not just a keeper of the light. You are an observer of the sky. You step outside, your eyes scanning the horizon with a practiced, critical gaze. You note the formation of the clouds, the subtle shifts in the wind, the color and texture of the water. You have learned to read the language of the elements, to see the coming of a storm in the mare, tails of high cirrus clouds, or to feel the promise of a calm day in the gentle, steady breeze from the west. Your observations are not just for your own benefit. They are a vital piece of information for the ships that ply these waters. A sudden squall, a thick bank of fog, these are the things that can turn a routine voyage into a desperate struggle for survival. Your ability to anticipate the weather is as important as the light itself. You might have a barometer, a precious and sensitive instrument, hanging on the wall of your cottage. You tap its glass face gently, noting the slight rise or fall of the needle. It is a small, mechanical oracle, offering you a glimpse into the future. The middle of the day is given over to the endless task of maintenance. A lighthouse is in a constant battle with the elements. The salt spray is a relentless corrosive, eating away at iron, wood, and stone. There is always something to be painted, repaired, or reinforced. Today, you might decide to repaint a section of the iron railing that surrounds the lantern room gallery. You mix the thick black paint, its acrid smell sharp in the clean sea air. You climb the tower once more, this time with a bucket and brush in hand. You work methodically, applying the paint in smooth, even strokes. It is a slow, repetitive task, but it is deeply satisfying. With each brushstroke, you are pushing back against the forces of decay, preserving this vital structure for another season. As you work, you are exposed to the full glory of the day. The sun is warm on your back, the wind whips at your clothes, and the cries of the gulls echo around. You are a tiny figure on a tall tower, a solitary man engaged in a simple, essential act of preservation. Or perhaps the task of the day is to inspect the connecting walkway, ensuring its roof is sound and its windows are secure. You might check the ropes and pulleys of the boat winch, making sure they are free of rust and ready for use. You might even venture down to the rocky shore at low tide, inspecting the foundations of the tower itself, looking for any cracks or signs of erosion from the ceaseless action of the waves. These are not glamorous tasks. They are the boring, uncelebrated duties that make up the bulk of your days, but they are essential. They are the quiet, steady work that keeps the light shining. Lunch is another simple meal, perhaps some salted fish and potatoes, or a thick soup made from dried beans and vegetables. You eat at your wooden table, the logbook lying open nearby. The afternoon stretches before you, a time for more personal pursuits. This is when the profound solitude of your position can truly be felt. There are no conversations to be had, no neighbors to visit, no bustling town to distract you. There is only you, the island, and the sea. Many keepers turn to hobbies to fill these long, quiet hours. You might be a wood carver, whittling small, intricate figures from pieces of driftwood you find on the shore. You might be a painter, capturing the dramatic, ever-changing moods of the sea on canvas. Or you might be a reader, losing yourself in the pages of a book, your small library a precious link to the wider world of ideas and stories. Let us imagine that you are a reader. Your collection of books is small but carefully chosen. There is a Bible, of course, its pages worn thin with use. There are works of Shakespeare, a volume of poetry by Tennyson, and perhaps a well-thumbed copy of Moby Dick, a story that resonates deeply with your own experience of the sea. You settle into your chair by the fire, the book open in your lap. The only sounds are the ticking of the clock and the gentle sigh of the wind. As you read, the world of the island recedes, and you are transported to another time, another place. You are in the Globe Theatre in London, or on the deck of the Pequod, or in the enchanted realm of Camelot. The books are your companions, your teachers, your solace. They are a reminder that even in the most profound isolation, you are still connected to the great ongoing story of humanity. As the afternoon wears on, the light begins to change. The brilliant silver of midday softens into a warm, golden hue. The shadows lengthen and the air grows cooler. It is time to begin your preparations for the night ahead. You put away your book, your mind still lingering in the world it created. You go back outside, your gaze once again turning to the east. The sun is beginning its slow descent towards the horizon, painting the sky in brilliant strokes of orange, pink, and purple. It is a sight of breathtaking beauty, a daily spectacle that you have the privilege of witnessing in its entirety. But for you, it is also a call to duty. The setting of the sun is the signal that your work is about to begin again. You climb the tower one last time in the daylight. The lantern room is filled with the warm, rosy light of The setting sun. The Fresnel lens, which you so carefully polished this morning, now seems to be on fire, its prisms capturing the last rays of daylight and scattering them in a dazzling display of color. You perform your final checks. You make sure the oil reservoir is full, the wick is trimmed, and the clockwork mechanism is ready to be engaged. You stand for a moment, watching as the sun dips below the horizon, the line between sea and sky dissolving into a soft, seamless blend of color. The world is holding its breath, waiting for the darkness, and in that moment of profound stillness, you feel a sense of anticipation. Quiet thrill. The day is ending and the time of the light is at hand, but as you prepare to strike the match and bring the flame to life, you notice something on the horizon. It is not a ship, not a cloud. It is a dark, hazy bank, low and ominous, that seems to be growing, spreading across the water towards you. It is the first sign of fog, the sailor's ancient enemy, and the lighthouse keeper's greatest challenge. How will the familiar routine of the night be altered by this silent, creeping adversary? The arrival of the fog changes everything. It is a silent, insidious invasion, a slow-motion erasure of the world. The clear, sharp lines of the horizon dissolve first, followed by the texture of the sea, until the water and the sky become a single, indistinguishable blur of gray. The fog creeps up the rocks of your small island, swallowing the keeper's cottage and the base of the tower, until you are completely enveloped, an island within an island, suspended in a world of white obscurity. The familiar, comforting sounds of the sea are muffled, dampened by the thick, wet air, replaced by an unnerving, profound silence. This is when the lighthouse is most needed and when your duty becomes most critical. The light is no longer just a beacon, it is a lifeline. With the sun gone and the fog descending, you do not hesitate. You strike a long match, its flare a small, defiant sun in the growing twilight of the lantern room. You bring the flame to the wick. It catches, sputters for a moment, and then blossoms into a steady, brilliant circle of light. The effect is instantaneous. The magnificent Fresnel lens, a passive collector of daylight, now becomes an active projector of fire. It gathers the light from the lamp, concentrates it, and sends it out in a powerful, piercing beam, a blade of pure white light cutting through the encroaching grayness. You release the brake on the clockwork mechanism. With a low groan and a series of satisfying clicks, the great lens begins to rotate, its heavy, graceful movement as reliable as the turning of the earth itself. The beam sweeps across the opaque world, a silent, rhythmic pulse of hope in the disorienting void. But on a night like this, the light alone is not enough. The thick, moisture-laden air of the fog can scatter and absorb the light, diminishing its range, making it a ghostly, ethereal glow rather than a sharp, clear signal. This is when you must turn to the second voice of the lighthouse, the foghorn. Not all lighthouses in the mid-19th century are equipped with such a device, but yours is. It is a massive, steam-powered horn, its machinery housed in a separate building near the base of the tower. Its activation is a laborious process. You must descend from the lantern room, your hand tight on the railing, the damp chill of the fog seeping into your bones. You make your way to the foghorn house, the air thick with the smell of coal smoke and hot metal. Inside, a small but powerful steam engine waits. You shovel coal into its fiery belly, stoking the flames, until the boiler begins to hiss and rumble, the pressure gauge slowly climbing. It is hot, dirty work. The roar of the furnace is a stark contrast to the muffled silence outside. You are in the belly of a mechanical beast, coaxing it to life. When the pressure is sufficient, you pull a long, heavy lever. The result is a sound of immense, startling power, a deep, resonant blast that seems to shake the very foundations of the island. It is a sound that is not so much heard as felt, a vibration that travels through the stone, through the air, and out into the blanketing fog. The horn sounds its mournful, periodic cry, a warning to any vessel that might be groping its way through the blindness, its sailors listening, desperately for a sign of land. Your night is now a duet of duties. You must divide your time between the lantern room and the foghorn house. You ascend the tower to check on the lamp, ensuring its flame burns bright and steady. You polish the lantern glass, wiping away the condensation that forms in the damp air. You look out from the gallery, but there is nothing to see but the swirling, impenetrable whiteness, the beam of your light cutting a sharp but finite path into it before being swallowed. Then you descend again, back to the heat and the noise of the foghorn house, to feed the hungry furnace, to check the steam pressure, to ensure that the great horn does not fall silent. The night becomes a cycle of climbing and descending, of tending to light and to sound, a relentless, physically demanding vigil. There is no sleep for you on a night like this. You might brew a pot of strong coffee, its warmth a small comfort against the pervasive chill. You might eat a piece of bread, your body craving the energy for the long hours of work ahead. But your mind is always focused, your senses always alert. You are listening, you are listening for the one sound you hope never to hear, but for which you are always prepared. The sound of a ship in distress, a frantic ringing of a bell, a desperate cry, the terrible splintering crash of wood against rock. These are the sounds that haunt the dreams of every lighthouse keeper. As the hours wear on, the profound isolation of your post is magnified by the fog. You are the only human being for miles, the only consciousness in this blank, featureless world. The rhythmic blast of the foghorn and the silent sweep of the light are your only companions. It is in moments like these that the mind can play tricks. You might imagine phantom shapes in the swirling mist, or hear voices in the mournful cry of the horn. The solitude is a weight, a presence. It requires a certain kind of mental fortitude, a deep well of inner resilience, to endure it without succumbing to despair or madness. Your life is a testament to that strength. You are not just a keeper of the light, you are a keeper of your own sanity. Finally, after what seems like an eternity, you begin to sense a change. The deep, impenetrable blackness of the night sky begins to soften. A faint gray light begins to seep into the world, a subtle dilution of the darkness. The fog, which had been a solid, suffocating blanket, begins to thin, to break apart into shifting, ghostly tendrils. You can begin to see the dark, wet shapes of the rocks below and the glint of the water's surface. Dawn is approaching. As the sun rises, a hidden artist behind a veil of mist, the fog begins to burn away. It retreats, pulling back from the island, revealing a world washed clean, glistening with moisture. The sea is calm, its surface like polished slate. The sky is a soft, pearlescent gray. You perform your morning ritual in reverse. You silence the great foghorn, the sudden quiet almost as startling as its blast. You extinguish the lamp, its duty done. You stand in the silent lantern room, the morning light streaming in, and you look out at the now visible world. And there, not half a mile from your shore, is a ship. It is a three-masted schooner, its sails furled, riding gently at anchor. It is safe. Its crew, who have spent a terrifying night navigating by sound and by faith, are now looking towards your lighthouse, their faces filled with a gratitude you will never hear expressed in words. They have survived the fog because of you. They have seen your light, heard your horn. They will continue their voyage, and you will remain here, a silent, solitary guardian. You have done your duty. You have kept the light. You have sounded the warning. You have faced the storm and the fog, and you have prevailed. Your life is one of quiet, uncelebrated heroism. It is a life of profound simplicity and immense significance. As you descend the tower for the final time this morning, deep bone-weary exhaustion in your limbs, you feel a sense of peace, of purpose fulfilled. The history of the sea is written in ships' logs and captains' journals, but its safety is written in the silent, steady work of men like you. Your story is not one of grand battles or political intrigue. It is a story of quiet dedication, of a single flame held steady against the darkness, a simple, profound, and deeply human act that allowed the world to keep turning. And in the quiet rhythm of your daily life, in the boring, repetitive, and essential tasks you perform, lies a significance that echoes far beyond the shores of your lonely island, a testament to the enduring power of a single, steadfast light. In the grand, sweeping narrative of the sea, we often focus on the light itself, the brilliant, piercing beam that cuts through the darkest night. It is the hero of the story, the visible symbol of safety and guidance. But behind this hero there is a silent, unsung partner, a substance as vital and as potent as the flame it feeds. This is the story of the oil. It is a story not of brilliant light, but of a heavy, viscous liquid, not of dramatic rescues, but of mundane logistics, careful measurements, and the constant, nagging fear of running out. For you, the keeper of the light, the oil is the lifeblood of your station. It is your single most important resource, the beginning and the end of your sacred duty. Without it, your magnificent tower is just a hollow stone shell, your wondrous Fresnel lens just a collection of useless glass. Your relationship with the oil begins long before it ever reaches your lighthouse. It begins in the far-flung corners of the world, in the violent, chaotic world of the whaling industry. For much of the 19th century, the finest fuel for a lighthouse lamp is sperm whale oil. It burns with a clear, bright, and virtually smokeless flame, a quality essential for keeping the delicate prisms of the lens free from soot. Imagine the journey of this oil. It begins in the frigid waters of the Arctic or the vast, sun-drenched expanses of the Pacific. It is the product of a brutal, dangerous hunt, a life-and-death struggle between man and beast. The great whale is harpooned, killed, and then brought alongside the whaling ship where its blubber is stripped away and rendered down in huge, smoking trypots on the deck. The resulting oil is stored in barrels, and after a voyage that can last for years, it is brought back to a bustling port like New Bedford or Nantucket. From there, it is sold to the Lighthouse Board, a government agency that oversees your very existence. It is tested for quality, decanted, and then stored in yet more barrels, waiting for the lighthouse tender supply ship that is your lifeline to the outside world. The arrival of the tender is the most significant event of your year. It happens only once, perhaps twice if you are lucky. Its approach is a moment of immense excitement and anxiety. You watch from the gallery of your tower as the ship, a sturdy, practical vessel, carefully navigates the treacherous waters around your island and drops anchor in the most sheltered spot it can find. The sight of it, with its crew moving about the deck and the smoke rising from its funnel, is a powerful reminder that you are not entirely alone in the world. But the arrival of the ship is only the beginning of the work. Now the oil must be brought ashore. This is a perilous and backbreaking task. The barrels are heavy, awkward, and immensely valuable. Each one contains a small fortune in fuel, a fortune that cannot be easily replaced. The sea is rarely calm enough for the tender to dock directly at your small stone jetty. Instead, the barrels must be transferred to a smaller, more maneuverable longboat, and then rowed ashore by the ship's crew, with you guiding them from the landing. You watch with your heart in your throat as the small boat rises and falls on the ocean. Swells, the crew straining at the oars. A single rogue wave, a moment of carelessness, could capsize the boat, sending your entire year's supply of fuel to the bottom of the sea. It is a disaster that has befallen other keepers, a catastrophe that would mean the extinguishing of the light and the end of your career. Once the barrels reach the shore, The work is far from over. They must be moved from the landing to the oil house. This is a small, sturdy, fireproof building, usually built some distance from the keeper's cottage. And the lighthouse tower itself. This separation is a crucial safety measure. The oil is, of course, highly flammable, and a fire in the oil house would be a devastating but contained disaster. A fire in the tower would be an unthinkable tragedy. You and the tender's crew use ropes, winches, and sheer brute force to wrestle the heavy barrels up the rocky path to the oil house. The air is filled with the sounds of straining men, the creak of ropes, and the hollow, booming sound of the barrels rolling over the uneven ground. It is exhausting, dangerous work, performed under the watchful eye of the tender's captain, who records the delivery of every single barrel in his own logbook. Finally, the last barrel is safely inside the oil house, its heavy iron door securely locked. The crew returns to the ship, and with a final blast of its whistle, the tender weighs anchor and steams away. Disappearing over the horizon, the silence that descends in its wake is profound. The brief, chaotic intrusion of the outside world is over, and you are once again alone with your duty. But now you are secure. Your oil house is full. The light will burn for another year. The oil house is your sanctuary, your vault. You are its sole guardian. Inside, the barrels are arranged in neat rows on wooden racks, their staves marked with the brand of the supplier and the date of delivery. The air is cool and dark, thick with the rich, fatty smell of the oil. It is a smell that permeates your clothes, your hands, your very being. It is the scent of your profession. Your duties now shift from receiving the oil to managing it. You are an accountant of fuel, a meticulous steward of this precious resource. Each day you must decant the oil needed for the night's burning. You use a special pump and a set of precisely calibrated measuring cans. You transfer the oil from the large storage barrel to a smaller, more portable container, which you will then carry to the lantern room. This process is fraught with its own small anxieties. You must be careful not to spill a single drop. The oil is slippery, and a spill on the stone floor would be a dangerous slipping hazard. It would also be a waste, a tiny but significant depletion of your vital stock. You record the amount of oil you decant in your logbook, keeping a running tally of your consumption. You are always aware of how much you are using, always calculating how much you have left. In the long, cold nights of winter, the lamp burns for more hours and your consumption increases. You watch your stock dwindle with a careful, measured concern. Will it be enough to last until the tender returns? This is the question that is always at the back of your mind. As the 19th century progresses, the type of oil you use might change. The great whales are being hunted to near extinction, and the price of sperm oil is skyrocketing. The Lighthouse Board, ever conscious of its budget, begins to experiment with other fuels. For a time, you might be supplied with lard oil. This is a fuel rendered from the fat of pigs, a byproduct of the great meat-packing houses of the Midwest. It is cheaper than whale oil, but it is also inferior. It does not burn as brightly, and in the cold of a New England winter, it has a tendency to congeal, to become thick and sluggish. On the coldest nights, you might have to install a small heater near the lamp's fuel line just to keep the oil flowing. It is another complication, another variable in the complex equation of keeping the light. Later still, you will be introduced to a new revolutionary fuel, kerosene, refined from petroleum. This rock oil is cheap, plentiful, and burns with a brilliant, consistent flame, but it is also more volatile, more dangerous than the animal-based oils you are used to. It requires a new level of caution, a new respect for the power of your fuel. The lamp itself must be modified, its burner and ventilation system redesigned to handle this new substance. The transition is not always smooth. Keepers, accustomed to the Forgiving nature of whale oil are sometimes careless with kerosene, with disastrous results. Stories of fires and explosions travel up and down the coast, a grim reminder that progress often comes with a price. But whatever the fuel, your duty remains the same. You are the guardian of the liquid that makes the light possible. Your days are punctuated by the ritual of handling it, the careful measuring, the clean, precise. Transfer the arduous climb up the tower with the heavy can of fuel. Your hands, calloused and strong, are stained with it. The smell of it clings to you like a second skin. It is a constant, tangible reminder of your purpose. It is the boring, repetitive, and utterly essential foundation upon which the entire system of maritime safety is built. But as you stand in the cool, dark silence of your oil house, surrounded by the barrels that represent your security for the coming year, you might wonder about the future. This system, this reliance on a single, precious commodity, feels so fragile. What would happen if the tender did not arrive? What if a storm more powerful than any you have ever seen were to breach the walls of this stone building and carry your precious barrels away? What then? The question of what then is not an idle one. It is the shadow that follows every lighthouse keeper. Constant, low-level anxiety that sharpens the senses and informs every decision. The reliance on the annual visit from the lighthouse tender creates a profound vulnerability. Your existence is tethered to the outside world by a long, thin, and easily broken thread. The history of the lighthouse service is filled with stories of keepers who were forced to confront this very question, whose supplies ran low, whose margin for error vanished, and who had to rely on their own ingenuity and resilience to keep their lights burning. Let us imagine that such a scenario begins to unfold on your own small, rocky island. The summer has been unusually stormy. The seas have been rough, the winds relentless. The lighthouse tender, which was due to arrive a month ago, has not appeared. At first, you are not overly concerned. Delays are a part of life on the coast. The weather, a mechanical failure. 100 other unforeseen circumstances could have altered the ship's schedule. You continue your duties with your usual meticulous care, your faith in the lighthouse board and its well-oiled logistics unshaken. You carefully measure out your daily ration of oil, record it in your logbook, and climb the tower to fill the lamp. The light burns brightly, a steady, reliable beacon in the night. But as the weeks turn into another month, a quiet unease begins to creep in. The autumn gales are approaching, and with them, the likelihood of the tender making the perilous journey to your station diminishes with each passing day. You begin to look at your remaining barrels of oil with a new, more critical eye. You do the math in your head and then on paper, a series of careful, precise calculations. You know how much oil the lamp consumes on an average night. You know how many hours of darkness there are in October, in November, in the long, deep nights of December. You calculate your remaining supply, and the numbers on the page are stark and unforgiving. If the tender does not arrive before winter sets in, you will not have enough oil to last until the spring. The realization dawns slowly, a cold, heavy weight in the pit of your stomach. Your light is in jeopardy. The thought is almost unimaginable. The failure of the light is the ultimate failure of a keeper. It is a dereliction of duty, a betrayal of the sacred trust placed in you. The lives of countless sailors, the safety of millions of dollars in cargo, all depend on that single, unwavering flame. And the fuel for that flame is slowly, inexorably running out. Your first response is to conserve. You become a miser of oil. You begin to implement a series of small, desperate measures, hopping to stretch your supply. You trim the wick of the lamp with an almost surgical precision, ensuring that not a single fraction of an inch is wasted. A perfectly trimmed wick burns more efficiently, consuming less oil. You might even slightly reduce the height of the flame, a tiny, almost imperceptible dimming of the light that you pray no one will notice. It is a dangerous compromise. The regulations of the Lighthouse Board are explicit about the brightness of the light. To tamper with it is a serious offense, but to let it go out entirely is unthinkable. You are caught in an impossible position, forced to choose between two kinds of failure. You begin to look for other sources of fuel, your eyes scanning your small island with a new, desperate intensity. Is there anything here that can burn? You might have a small supply of kerosene for your own personal use, for a reading lamp in your cottage. You eye it now, not as a comfort but as a potential supplement to your dwindling stock of lamp oil. But it is a different kind of fuel, more volatile, and you are not sure if it is safe to use in the delicate mechanism of the Fresnel lens lamp. You might even consider the unthinkable, using the tallow from your candles, the grease from your cooking, anything that might produce a flame. But these are dirty, smoky fuels. They would quickly coat the precious prisms of the lens with a thick layer of soot, rendering the light useless. The psychological toll of this constant, gnawing anxiety is immense. Every night as you light the lamp, you are acutely aware of the precious, finite resource you are consuming. Every drop of oil that is drawn up the wick feels like a drop of your own blood. You begin to watch the weather with a desperate, prayerful intensity. You scan the horizon for the smudge of smoke that would signal the approach of the tender, your heart leaping at the sight of a distant fishing boat, only to sink again when you realize your mistake. The solitude of your post, which you once found peaceful, now feels like a crushing weight. There is no one to share your burden with, no one to offer advice or reassurance. You are alone with your dwindling supply of oil and your growing sense of dread. Your daily routines, once a source of comfort and stability, now become a source of anxiety. The simple act of filling the lamp's reservoir is fraught with tension. You handle the measuring cans with an almost trembling caution, terrified of spilling even a single precious drop. The logbook, where you must dutifully record your daily consumption, becomes a testament to your impending failure. Each entry is a step closer to the day when you will have to write the unthinkable words, "No oil, light not lit." As the days grow shorter and the nights grow longer, your conservation efforts become more extreme. You might decide to extinguish the light for a few hours in the middle of the night, during the time when maritime traffic is lightest. It is a desperate gamble, a violation of every rule and regulation you have sworn to uphold. You lie in your bed in the profound, unnatural darkness of a lightless tower, and you listen. You listen for the sound of a ship's bell, for the cry of a lookout, for the terrible, splintering sound of a vessel striking the rocks that your light is supposed to reveal. The silence of the night is a torment, every creak of the cottage, every sigh of the wind, a potential harbinger of disaster. You might even try to signal your distress to the mainland. During the day, you could fly the flag upside down, the universal signal of an emergency. But your island is remote, far from the main shipping lanes. Who would see it? A passing fishing boat, a distant coastal trader. And even if they did, what could they do? They have no spare oil to give you. The only hope is the tender. The crisis forces you to reevaluate your relationship with your environment. You are no longer just a keeper of the light, you are a survivor. You must think like your earliest predecessors, the keepers who existed before the organized logistics of the Lighthouse Board, the men who had to be entirely self-sufficient. You look at the seals basking on the rocks, and you see not just a charming feature of the local wildlife, but a potential source of blubber, of oil. The thought is a grim one, and the process of hunting and rendering would be difficult and dangerous. But the thought is there, a testament to the desperation of your situation. What lengths would you go to? What compromises would you make to keep the flame alive? The decision to act, to move beyond the passive anxiety of waiting and the small, insufficient measures of conservation is a turning point. The hypothetical consideration of hunting seals for their blubber marks shift in your mindset. You are no longer simply a custodian of a government-supplied resource. You are a man on a desolate frontier, forced to live by your wits and the raw materials of your environment. Spectre of a dark tower has become so terrifying that it pushes you to contemplate actions that would have been unthinkable just a few months prior. The rules and regulations of the Lighthouse Board, the very framework of your professional life, seem distant and abstract compared to the immediate, tangible crisis you face. Let us imagine that you do not have to resort to such a grim, primal measure. Instead, a different kind of opportunity presents itself, one born not of desperation but of a stroke of violent luck. The autumn gales, which you had feared would be the final nail in the coffin of your hopes for the tender's arrival, bring with them an unexpected and morally complex bounty. A storm of unusual ferocity descends upon your coast, a 3-day onslaught of wind and waves that turns the sea into a churning, chaotic cauldron. You spend these days in a state of heightened alert, your world reduced to the shriek of the wind, the thunder of the surf, and the vibrating hum of the tower as it withstands the assault. The foghorn, if you have one, bellows its mournful warning into the maelstrom, its steam engine consuming precious coal. Another resource you must now carefully ration. The light, your precious oil-fed light, seems small and fragile against the immense, elemental fury of the storm. On the 4th day, the storm breaks. The wind subsides, the sea calms, and a weak, watery sun emerges from behind the tattered clouds. You emerge from your cottage to survey the damage. The island is littered with debris, a testament to the power of the waves. Seaweed is draped over rocks you thought were beyond the reach of the highest tides. The walkway to the tower may have lost some shingles, the paint on the lighthouse may be scoured and chipped, but as you walk the perimeter of your small kingdom, you see it. Washed up in a small, rocky cove on the leeward side of the island is the wreckage of a ship. It is not a large vessel, perhaps a small coastal schooner, and it has been utterly destroyed. Its back is broken, its masts are gone, and its hull is a tangle of splintered planks and twisted iron. There is no sign of the crew. You scan the wreckage and the surrounding waters with a heavy heart, knowing that they have almost certainly been lost to the sea. It is a grim, sobering sight, a stark reminder of the very reason for your existence here. But as you get closer, you see something that makes your own heart beat faster. Amidst the wreckage, miraculously intact, are several wooden barrels. You clamber over the slippery rocks, your boots sinking into the wet sand. You reach the barrels, your hands trembling slightly. You can smell it, the faint, unmistakable fatty scent of oil. It is not the high-quality sperm oil supplied by the Lighthouse Board. This is likely a cheaper grade of fish oil, or perhaps even linseed oil, part of the ship's cargo, but it is oil. It is fuel. It is a potential salvation. The moral dilemma you face is profound. This is not your property. This is salvage. According to maritime law, you should report it, and it belongs to the ship's owners or to their insurance company. But the law feels very far away at this moment. Your immediate reality is the dwindling supply in your own oil house. To take these barrels would be a form of theft, but to leave them here, to let them be washed back out to sea by the next high tide, while your own light is in danger of being extinguished, feels like a greater form of negligence. Your duty to the law is pitted against your duty to the light. After a period of intense, solitary deliberation, you make your choice. Your primary duty, the one that supersedes all others, is to keep the light burning. You set to work. It is a Herculean task. The barrels are heavy and awkward, and the cove is accessible only by a narrow, treacherous path. You use your winch, your ropes, and every ounce of your strength to haul the barrels, one by one, up from the cove and across the island to your oil house. It takes you days of backbreaking labor. You are exhausted, your muscles ache, and your hands are raw. But with each barrel that you safely store away, you feel a growing sense of relief, a lightening of the terrible burden you have been carrying for months. You now have a new problem. The salvaged oil is of unknown quality. You must test it. You carefully decant a small amount into a container and take it up to the lantern room. You fill a small, secondary lamp, not the main lighthouse beacon, and you light it. The flame is not as bright or as clean as the one produced by your official supply. It sputters slightly and it produces a noticeable amount of smoke. It is an inferior fuel, but it is a fuel nonetheless. You realize that you can use it to supplement your own supply. You can mix it, a little at a time, with your good oil, creating a blend that will hopefully be sufficient to keep the lamp burning brightly enough without producing too much soot. The winter that follows is a long and anxious one. The tender never comes. You are truly on your own, sustained by your own foresight and by the bounty of a tragic shipwreck. Each night, you perform a delicate balancing act, a form of frontier alchemy, mixing your precious, high-grade whale oil with the smoky, salvaged fish oil. You watch the flame with an eagle eye, constantly adjusting the wick, cleaning the lens more frequently to remove the extra soot. It is a constant, wearying struggle, but you succeed. The light does not fail. Every night its beam sweeps across the dark winter sea, a testament to your quiet, desperate ingenuity. When the spring finally arrives, and with it the long overdue lighthouse tender, the captain is full of apologies and explanations. The ship had been damaged in a storm and had required extensive repairs. He is relieved to see that your light is still burning, and he commends you on your careful management of your resources. He does not need to know the full story. He does not need to know about the shipwreck, the salvaged barrels, the nightly alchemy you performed. Your logbook is a model of efficiency, its numbers telling a story of remarkable, almost impossible, conservation. The secret of the salvaged oil remains with you, a silent, heavy knowledge. You have done more than just keep the light burning. You have demonstrated the ultimate quality of a good lighthouse keeper, the ability to adapt, to innovate, and to survive. You have learned that the oil that fuels the light is not just a commodity delivered by a ship. It is a resource that must be understood, managed, and, if necessary, found in the most unexpected and tragic of circumstances. Your relationship with this vital substance has been forever changed. It is no longer just a fuel. It is a symbol of your own resilience, a liquid testament to the lengths you will go to in order to defy the darkness. There is a hierarchy of fear for the sailor, a ranking of the perils that the sea can conjure. Storms are violent and terrifying, their fury a direct and obvious threat. Hidden reefs and shoals are a constant, lurking danger, a geological treachery waiting for a single navigational error. But there is another danger, a more insidious and disorienting foe, that is perhaps the most dreaded of all. It is not a thing of violence or of solid substance. It is an absence. It is the fog, when the world is erased, when sight is rendered useless, when a ship is reduced to a blind and vulnerable vessel, groping its way through a white and silent void. A new kind of terror takes hold. It is in these moments that the lighthouse, the great beacon of the night, finds its own power diminished, its brilliant light scattered and absorbed by the thick, wet air. And it is in these moments that another voice is needed, a voice of pure sound, a voice that can pierce the impenetrable veil of the fog. This is the story of that voice, the foghorn. For you, the keeper of the light, the foghorn is a different kind of instrument, a different kind of duty. The light is a thing of beauty and precision, its maintenance a delicate, almost artistic ritual. The Fresnel lens is a marvel of crystal and brass, a thing to be polished and cared for like a precious jewel. The foghorn, by contrast, is a beast. It is a creature of iron and steam, of coal and fire. It lives not in the clean, airy heights of the lantern room, but in its own squat, sturdy house, a place of heat, noise, and grime. Its voice is not a silent, sweeping elegance, but a brutal, deafening roar. Tending to it is not a matter of delicate polishing, but of heavy, strenuous labor. It is the industrial, muscular counterpart to the lighthouse's ethereal grace. The need for an audible signal was recognized long before the technology existed to create a truly effective one. Early lighthouses attempted to solve the problem in a variety of ways. Some were equipped with massive bells, which the keeper would have to strike by hand with a heavy hammer, a monotonous and exhausting task that could last for days on end. The sound of a bell, while clear in still air, did not carry well over long distances, and it could be easily lost in the sound of the waves or the wind. Other stations experimented with cannons, firing them at regular intervals. The sharp, percussive blast of a cannon could certainly be heard, but it was an expensive, dangerous, and impractical solution. The keeper would have to handle gunpowder in all weather conditions, and the cost of the powder and shot was prohibitive. These were desperate, inadequate measures, the best that could be devised in an age before the power of steam was fully harnessed. The true revolution in fog signaling came in the mid-19th century, with the invention of the steam-powered foghorn. This was a technology born of the Industrial Revolution, a direct application of the same principles that were driving locomotives and powering factories. The concept was simple: use a steam engine to compress air, and then release that compressed air through a massive horn or whistle to create a sound of immense power and volume. The implementation, however, was a complex and demanding piece of engineering, especially on a remote, windswept island. Your foghorn apparatus is a self-contained system, a miniature factory dedicated to the production of sound. It begins with the boiler. This is a thick iron cylinder riveted together with a firebox at its base. It is your first and most demanding task to bring it to life. You must start by building a fire, using precious, rationed coal that, like your oil, is delivered by the annual supply tender. You shovel the coal into the firebox, your face blasted by the intense heat, your ears filled with the roar of the flames. You must then wait, sometimes for an hour or more, for the water in the boiler to heat up and begin to produce steam. You watch the pressure gauge with a practiced eye, the needle slowly, painstakingly climbing towards the required level. It is a process that cannot be rushed. Too much pressure and you risk a catastrophic explosion, a disaster that could destroy the foghorn house and you along with it. While the steam pressure is building, you attend to the other parts of the machine. You must oil the moving parts of the steam engine, the piston, the flywheel, the various gears and linkages. You use a thick, heavy grease, applying it with a rag or a brush, your hands becoming coated in a familiar film of grime. The engine is a complex piece of machinery, a marvel of Victorian engineering, but it is also a demanding and temperamental beast. It requires constant attention, a deep, intuitive understanding of its rhythms and its moods. You learn to recognize the meaning of its different sounds, the healthy, rhythmic chuff of the piston, the worrying clank of a loose bearing, the high-pitched hiss of a leaking valve. Once the steam pressure is sufficient, you can engage the engine. You pull a lever and with a great sigh and a cloud of steam, the piston begins to move. The massive flywheel starts to turn, slowly at first and Then with increasing speed, the engine settles into a steady, powerful rhythm, its chugging and hissing, filling the small building with a deafening, industrial clamor. The engine drives an air compressor, which pumps air into a large storage tank or receiver. This is where the power of the steam is converted into the potential for sound. You watch another gauge, this one measuring the air pressure in the receiver. When it reaches the optimal level, the system is ready. The beast is awake and waiting for your command. The final part of the apparatus is the horn itself. This is usually a massive, conical trumpet made of brass or copper that projects out from the roof or a wall of the foghorn house pointed out to sea. It is connected to the air receiver by a series of pipes and a large spring-loaded valve. The timing of the blasts is controlled by a clockwork mechanism, a complex system of cams and levers driven by the steam engine itself. This mechanism is designed to produce your station's unique audible signature, a 3-second blast every 30 seconds, for example, or 2 short blasts every minute. This unique pattern allows sailors to identify your lighthouse by its sound, just as they can identify it by the unique flashing pattern of its light. With the engine running and the pressure up, you engage the timing mechanism. The cam begins to rotate and, at the designated moment, it trips the valve. The result is instantaneous and overwhelming. The compressed air from the receiver is released into the horn, producing a sound of incredible, bone-jarring power. It is a deep, resonant, almost mournful cry, a sound that seems to come from the very lungs of the earth. It blasts out across the water, a physical wave of sound that can travel for miles, punching through the thick, muffling blanket of the fog. The first blast is always a shock, even when you are expecting it. You feel it in your chest, in your teeth, in the very foundations of the stone building around you. Your work is not over once the horn is sounding. In fact, it has just begun. You must now become a tender to this noisy, demanding machine for the duration of the fog, which could be hours, or it could be days. You must constantly feed the boiler with coal, your body slick with sweat in the intense heat of the small room. You must monitor the steam and air pressure gauges, making constant, small adjustments to keep them at the optimal levels. You must keep the engine lubricated, listening for any signs of mechanical trouble. It is a relentless, exhausting, and filthy job. The air is thick with coal, dust, and steam. The noise is incessant and deafening, and the heat is oppressive. It is a world away from the clean, quiet, contemplative work of the lantern room. This is the boring, unglamorous, and utterly vital reality behind the haunting, romantic sound of the foghorn. It is a sound born of sweat, coal, and constant, wearying labor. It is a sound that requires a deep and intimate knowledge of a complex and dangerous machine. But as you stand in the deafening roar of the engine room, your body aching with fatigue, you know the importance of your work. You know that out there in the white blindness of the fog, there are men whose lives depend on this sound, who are listening for it with a desperate life-or-death intensity. You are their ears, their guide, their audible hope. But as the hours grind on, and the monstrous rhythm of the machine becomes the only reality you know, a question begins to form in your mind. The machine is a marvel, but it is also a fragile, complicated thing. What happens when its own voice fails? What happens when the beast in the stone house falls silent? The question of the machine's failure is not an abstract one. It is an ever-present possibility, a ghost that haunts the engine room. The foghorn is a collection of moving parts, all of them under immense stress. From heat, pressure, and constant repetitive motion, metal fatigues, valves clog, and seals fail. You, as its tender, are not just an operator. You are its doctor, its mechanic, its sole lifeline. Your knowledge of its inner workings is not theoretical. It is visceral, learned through countless hours of observation. Maintenance and minor repairs. You know its every cough, sputter, and groan, and you know that one day, one of those groans will be its last. That day arrives on the second night of a relentless, soul-sapping fog. The white wall descended upon your island 36 hours ago, and the foghorn has been in continuous operation ever since. You are beyond tired. Your body is a single comprehensive ache, your muscles screaming from the endless shoveling of coal, and the constant, jarring vibration of the machinery. Your ears ring with a permanent echo of the horn blast, and your eyes are red and raw from the coal dust and the lack of sleep. You are moving in a state of near total exhaustion, your actions driven by pure muscle memory and an unyielding sense of duty. The world has shrunk to this single, roaring, hellishly hot room. It happens without warning. In the middle of a cycle, the great horn gives a choked, strangled cough. Instead of its usual authoritative roar, the sound is immediately, terrifyingly wrong. It is followed by high-pitched squeal from the engine, a sound of metal grinding against metal in protest. Then the rhythmic, chugging heartbeat of the machine falters, slows, and with a final, shuddering sigh stops. Silence that crashes down is absolute and terrifying. It is heavier and more profound than the silence of the fog itself. It is the silence of failure. For a moment you are frozen, your shovel half raised, your mind struggling to catch up with the sudden, catastrophic change. The absence of the horn's cry is a physical blow. It is a void, a betrayal, you know, with a certainty that chills you to the bone, that out there in the white blindness, ships are still moving, their captains and crews listening for your voice, and they are hearing nothing. Your silence is a lie, a false signal that this patch of sea is safe, when in fact it is home to the treacherous rocks that your station was built to guard. Adrenaline, sharp and potent, cuts through your exhaustion. You drop the shovel with a clatter and lunge for the machinery. You are a doctor whose patient has just gone into cardiac arrest. You move with a desperate, focused urgency, your hands, protected by thick leather gloves, moving over the hot, still ticking metal of the engine. Your mind races through a diagnostic checklist, a mental flowchart of potential failures. First, the boiler, you check the gauge. The pressure is still high, the fire still roaring in the firebox. The problem is not the heart. It is somewhere in the complex vascular system of the engine or the compressor. You move to the engine itself. It is hot to the touch and the air around it shimmers with heat. You try to turn the great flywheel by hand. It does not budge. It is seized, frozen in place. This is a catastrophic failure. Something has broken, has jammed the intricate dance of the piston and the crankshaft. Your mind leaps to the most likely culprit, a failure of lubrication. In your exhaustion, did you neglect to oil a critical bearing? Did a grease cup run dry? The thought sends a wave of self-recrimination through you. But there is no time for guilt. There is only time to act. Working by the dim, flickering light of a single oil lantern, for the engine room is too full of potentially explosive coal dust for open flames, you begin the painstaking process of dismantling the engine. You grab your tools, heavy wrenches, spanners, a crowbar. The nuts and bolts are massive and they have been tightened by the heat and the pressure. It takes all of your strength to loosen them, your muscles straining, your knuckles scraping against the iron. The work is slow, hot, and filthy. Sweat pours down your face, stinging your eyes, and your hands are black with a mixture of grease and coal dust. After what feels like an eternity of grunting, straining, and cursing into the echoing silence, you manage to remove the housing of the main piston bearing, and there it is, the source of the failure, a small steel pin, a cotter pin that holds the bearing in place, has sheared in two. One half has fallen away, while the other, jagged half has been ground into the moving parts, scoring the metal and causing the engine to seize. It is such a small thing, a piece of metal no bigger than your thumb, to have caused such a complete and devastating silence. The discovery brings both a sense of relief and a new wave of dread. You have found the problem, but can you fix it? You rummage through your spare parts box, a wooden crate filled with a jumble of nuts, bolts, gaskets, and other small, essential pieces of metal. Your fingers, clumsy with grease and fatigue, search desperately for a replacement pin. You find one. It is the right diameter, but it is slightly too long. It will not fit without being modified. Now you must become a blacksmith. You take the pin and a file from your toolbox. You clamp the pin in a small vise attached to your workbench, and in the dim, hellish light of the lantern, you begin the slow, laborious process of filing the pin down to the correct size. The sound of the file rasping against the steel is a tiny, pathetic noise in the vast, anxious silence of the fog-bound night. It is a sound of desperate hope, of a single man fighting against a mechanical apocalypse. Each stroke of the file is a prayer. Each tiny curl of metal that falls away is a small victory against the encroaching chaos. As you work, your mind is out there in the fog. You imagine a schooner, heavy with cargo, its crew peering into the white nothingness, their ears straining for a sound that is not there. You see the captain on his bridge, his face etched with worry, checking his compass, checking his charts, knowing he is close to land but not knowing exactly where. He is relying on you, he is trusting you, and you are here in this hot, dark room, filing a tiny piece of metal, your heart pounding with a mixture of fear and a desperate, fragile hope. The fate of that ship, of those men, rests in your grimy hands, in the precision of your work, in your ability to bring this dead beast of a machine back to life. The silence from the sea is a constant, terrifying pressure. You have identified the wound, but the patient is still bleeding out. Can you, alone and exhausted, complete the surgery in time? The work is agonizingly slow. The steel of the cotter pin is hard, and the small file feels inadequate for the task. Your arm aches, your back is a knot of pain, and your eyes, unaccustomed to such close, detailed work in the dim light, are burning. The silence of the engine room is a physical weight pressing in on you. It is a silence that allows you to hear things you would not normally notice. The frantic, panicked beating of your own heart, the slow, rhythmic drip of condensation from the ceiling, and most terrifyingly, the sounds from outside. You hear the mournful cry of a loon, a sound that seems to amplify the profound, disorienting loneliness of the fog. And then you hear it again, the sound you thought you imagined before, the faint, desperate clang of a ship's bell. It is closer this time, a frantic, irregular ringing, a sound of pure, unadulterated panic. It is the sound of a ship that knows it is in mortal danger. It is the sound of men who know they are lost, who are about to meet their doom on the rocks that you are supposed to be guarding. The sound galvanizes you. It erases your fatigue, your pain, your despair. It floods you with a new, desperate surge of adrenaline. You are no longer just a mechanic trying to fix a broken machine. You are a rescuer, a guardian, and you are failing. You work with a renewed, frantic energy. The file flies back and forth, your arm a piston of pure will. You do not have time to be precise. You file until the pin looks approximately the right size, and then you test it. It is still too long. You curse, a raw, guttural sound in the quiet room, and you go back to filing. The ship's bell rings again, closer still, its frantic rhythm a drumbeat of impending doom. You can almost feel the ship's presence, a massive, blind, and helpless thing, groping its way towards destruction, just beyond the walls of your small building. Finally, after another eternity of filing, the pin fits. It slides into place with a satisfying click. You quickly reassemble the bearing housing, your fingers, slick with grease, fumbling with the heavy nuts. You tighten them with the wrench, using the last of your strength to make them secure. The engine is back. Together, but will it work? Or have you in your haste made a fatal error? Has the initial seizure caused some deeper, unseen damage to the piston or the cylinder? There is only one way to find out. You take a deep breath, a prayer on your lips, and you pull the lever to engage the steam. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happens. The engine remains silent, a dead mass of iron. And then, with a great shuddering groan, the flywheel begins to turn. It moves slowly, hesitantly, as if waking from a long and painful sleep. It protests with a series of squeals and clanks, the sounds of a machine that has been wounded and abused, but it moves. The piston begins its slow, rhythmic dance, and the engine, your beautiful, monstrous, stubborn engine, comes back to life. It settles into its familiar, chugging rhythm, sound that is now the most beautiful music you have ever heard. You do not waste a second. You engage the compressor, and you watch with an almost unbearable intensity as the air pressure gauge begins to climb. The needle moves with agonizing slowness. The ship's bell is ringing almost continuously now, a frantic, desperate plea from the white darkness. You can hear shouting, faint cries carried on the damp air. They are so close, so terribly close. The pressure reaches the required level. You do not wait for the automatic timer. You grab the manual, override a large wooden-handled lever, and you pull it with all your might. The valve opens, and the horn, which has been silent for what feels like a lifetime, erupts with its glorious, deafening, life-affirming roar. The blast is a physical force, a wave of sound that punches through the fog, a direct, powerful answer to the desperate ringing of the bell. You sound it again and again and again, abandoning the station's official signal, simply pouring sound into the void, a continuous, desperate warning. And then you hear a new sound. It is the sound of an anchor, its heavy chain rattling out, a sound of sudden life-saving stillness. The frantic ringing of the bell stops, the shouting subsides. There is only the roar of your horn and the steady, rhythmic chugging of your engine. You have done it. You have brought the beast back to life. You have pushed back against the silence. You have, at the very last possible moment, averted a disaster. You keep the horn sounding for another hour, long after you are sure the ship is safely at anchor, waiting for the fog to lift. When you finally let the machine fall silent, the quiet that returns is not the terrifying, empty silence of failure, but the peaceful, contented silence of a duty fulfilled. You are soaked in sweat, covered in grease and coal dust, and so tired that you can barely stand. But you have never felt more alive. When the fog finally lifts the next morning, you see the ship. It is a large, three-masted bark, anchored so close to the rocks that you can almost see the faces of the sailors on its deck. They are looking at your lighthouse, and as they see you emerge from the foghorn house, they begin to cheer. They wave their hats in the air, their voices carrying across the calm, sunlit water a chorus of pure, unadulterated gratitude. You do not wave back. You simply stand there, a small, solitary, grimy figure, and you nod. It is a quiet, understated acknowledgement of a shared ordeal, of a connection forged in the terrifying blindness of the fog. You have learned something profound in these last 2 days. You have learned that the foghorn is more than just a machine. It is a living thing with a voice, a temperament, and a will of its own. It is a beast that demands to be fed, to be cared for, to be understood. And you are its keeper. Your relationship with it is not one of master and servant, but of partners in a vital, ongoing struggle against the silence and the chaos of the sea. The haunting, mournful cry of the horn will no longer be just the sound of your duty. It will be the sound of your own resilience, a powerful, echoing testament to a battle fought and won in the heart of the white darkness. The life of a lighthouse keeper is defined by a profound and structured isolation. Your primary purpose the tending of the light and the horn, is a duty that connects you to the wider world of maritime commerce. Yet your daily existence is almost entirely disconnected from that world. You are a man on an island, both literally and figuratively. The annual visit of the supply tender is a crucial lifeline, a delivery of the essential non-perishable goods that form the backbone of your pantry. Barrels of flour, sacks of dried beans and rice, tins of salted meat, and of course the all-important oil for the lamp. But a man cannot live on hardtack and salted beef alone. And what if the tender is delayed, as it so often is? A keeper who relies solely on the lighthouse board for his sustenance is a keeper who is tempting fate. True self-sufficiency, you have learned, is not just a virtue, it is a vital survival skill. Your small, rocky outpost, which to a casual observer might seem barren and inhospitable, is to your practiced eye a larder. It is a place of hidden bounty, a place that can provide for you if you know where to look and how to reap its harvest. This is the story of your sustenance, of the ways in which you supplement your official rations with the wild, fresh, and living food that your island and the surrounding sea can provide. It is a story of foraging, fishing, and a deep, practical knowledge of the natural world. Your day, after the primary duties of the lantern room are complete, is often structured around the tides. The rise and fall of the sea is the rhythm that governs your search for food. At low tide, the ocean pulls back its watery curtain, revealing a world that is normally hidden from view, the intertidal zone. This is your garden. You pull on a pair of sturdy, waterproof boots, grab a bucket and a small, three-pronged rake, and you make your way down the slippery, seaweed-strewn rocks to the water's edge. The air is thick with the rich, complex smell of low tide, a mixture of salt, iodine, and the faint, sweet scent of decay. Your first target is mussels. They cling to the rocks in dense, blue-black colonies, their shells tightly closed, holding in the precious moisture of the sea. You use a small crowbar or a heavy knife to pry them. From their rocky anchors, the sound a satisfying, percussive crack. You select only the largest, healthiest-looking mussels, leaving the smaller ones to grow and reproduce. This is not just a matter of efficiency, it is a matter of stewardship. You are not just a harvester, you are a farmer of the rocks. You understand that you must not deplete your resources. You must live in balance with your small, fragile ecosystem. You fill your bucket with the heavy, clattering shells, their weight a promise of a rich and savory meal. Further down, in the pools of water left behind by the receding tide, you find other treasures. These tide pools are miniature aquariums, teeming with life. You peer into their clear, still water, your shadow falling over a world of small crabs, scuttling sideways into the shelter of a rock, and tiny, darting fish. You might find periwinkles, their small, snail-like shells moving with an almost imperceptible slowness. Across the rocks, they are a small, chewy morsel, a taste of the sea that you can boil and eat with a pin. But your true prize in the tide pools is the seaweed. To the uninitiated, it is just a slippery, unattractive weed, but to you it is a vital source of nutrition and flavor. You know the different varieties by sight and by name. You gather dulse, its reddish-brown, leathery fronds rich in vitamins and minerals. You can dry it and eat it as a salty, chewy snack, or you can add it to soups and stews to provide a deep, savory flavor. You find sea lettuce, its bright green, translucent sheets perfect for adding to a salad, a fresh, crisp taste of the ocean. And you might even find kelp, its long, thick fronds, a source of iodine and a key ingredient in the broths that will warm you during the long, cold winter nights. You gather the seaweed carefully, cutting it with a knife rather than pulling it up by its roots, ensuring that it will grow back. Back in your cottage, you process your harvest. You scrub the mussels, removing any barnacles or grit from their shells. You rinse the seaweed, laying it out to dry on clean cloths or hanging it from a line strung. Across your kitchen, the room is filled with the fresh, clean smell of the sea, a tangible reminder of the morning's work. The mussels will be your evening meal. You will steam them in a pot with a little seawater until their shells open, revealing the plump, orange meat inside. It is a simple meal, but it is one of pure, unadulterated flavor, a taste of the wild, untamed ocean. Fishing is another cornerstone of your existence. You are not a sport fisherman. You are a subsistence fisherman. Your methods are practical, efficient, and tailored to the unique conditions of your station. You have a small, sturdy dory, a boat that you can launch and retrieve by yourself using a winch and a ramp. On a calm day, you might row out a short distance from the island, your handlines coiled neatly at your feet. You use heavy lead weights to take your baited hooks down to the rocky bottom where the cod and the pollock feed. You do not use a rod and reel. You feel the line in your hands, your fingers sensitive to the subtle, telltale bump and tug of a fish taking the bait. The feeling is a direct, physical connection to the unseen world beneath the waves. When you feel a strong, determined pull, you haul the line in hand. Overhand, the wet, heavy rope coiling at your feet until the fish, a beautiful, silvery, struggling creature, breaks the surface and is brought into the boat. More often than not, however, the sea is too rough for you to safely take the dory out. On these days, you fish from the rocks. This is a different kind of challenge. You must find a spot where you can cast your line out beyond the kelp beds, a place where you have a chance of landing a fish without it becoming snagged on the rocky bottom. It requires a deep knowledge of the underwater topography of your island. Mental map of the channels, ledges, and drop-offs where the fish are likely to congregate. You might spend hours on a rocky ledge, the wind whipping at your face, the spray of the waves dampening your clothes, waiting with a stoic patience for a bite. The reward for this patience is a fresh-caught fish, its scales shimmering in the light, its eyes clear and bright. The fish you catch are a vital source of protein. You eat them fresh, of course, pan-fried in a little lard, the skin crispy and the flesh flaky and white, but you cannot possibly eat all that you catch. The surplus must be preserved. You are as much a fish curer as you are a fisherman. You build a small smokehouse, a simple wooden shed, where you can hang the filleted fish to be slowly smoked over a smoldering fire of driftwood. The smoked fish will keep for months, a valuable protein-rich resource that will see you through the lean times of winter. You also salt your fish, packing the fillets in barrels of coarse salt, a method of preservation as old as seafaring itself. Your cottage is filled with the pungent, savory smells of smoked and salted fish, the scent of foresight and security. This life of foraging and fishing is not just about survival. It is about a deeper connection to your environment. You are not just living on the island, you are living with it. Your life is a constant dialogue with the sea, the sky, and the rocks. You learn to read the subtle signs of nature, the way the gulls are behaving, the color of the water, the direction of the swell. These are all clues that tell you where the fish might be, when the tide will be at its lowest, what the weather is likely to do. It is a knowledge that is both scientific and intuitive, a wisdom that is accumulated over years of patient observation. But this reliance on the natural world also brings with it a profound sense of vulnerability. The sea is a generous provider, but it is also fickle and unpredictable. What happens when the fish stop biting, when a red tide makes the shellfish poisonous, or when a storm destroys your boat? What happens when the larder of the sea suddenly slams its door shut? The precarious balance of your self-sufficient existence is thrown into chaos by an event that is both natural and deeply unnatural. It begins not with a storm, but with a strange, ominous stillness in the water, the sea. Usually a vibrant clear blue-green takes on a murky reddish-brown hue. It is the sign of a red tide, a massive algal bloom that can poison the very water that sustains you. You have seen it before, but never this widespread, never this persistent. The phenomenon is a stark reminder that the ocean, your great provider, can also become a source of poison. The immediate consequence of the red tide is that your primary source of fresh food is now off limits. The mussels, the periwinkles, the clams, all the filter-feeding shellfish that are a staple of your diet, are now potentially deadly. They accumulate the toxins produced by the algae, and to eat them would be to risk paralysis or even death. You look at the dense colonies of mussels on the rocks, once a symbol of abundance, and you now see them as a threat, a beautiful but treacherous trap. Your intertidal garden has become a minefield. At first, you are not overly concerned. You have your stores of salted and smoked fish. You have your barrels of flour and your sacks of beans. You can weather this. You turn your full attention to fishing, hopping to make up for the loss of the shellfish. But the red tide has affected the entire marine ecosystem. The fish, it seems, have fled the toxic water. Your usual fishing spots, the reliable ledges and channels that have always provided for you, are now barren. You cast your line for hours, using different baits, trying different depths, but you get nothing. The familiar welcome tug on the line does not come. The sea is silent, dead. Days turn into weeks, and the red tide shows no sign of abating. A new, more serious level of anxiety begins to set in. Your stores of preserved fish, which you had thought of as a winter reserve, are now your primary source of protein, and they are dwindling at an alarming rate. You begin to ration them, cut your portions in half, trying to stretch the supply. The gnawing, physical sensation of hunger becomes a constant companion. It is a dull ache in your belly, a lightheadedness that makes your daily climb up the tower feel more strenuous than ever before. Your isolation, once a source of quiet contentment, now feels like a prison. You are trapped on this island of plenty, which has suddenly become an island of scarcity. You scan the horizon each day with a desperate hope, not for the supply tender, which is not due for months, but for a sign that the red tide is breaking up, that the natural order is being restored. But the sea remains a murky, unwholesome brown. The crisis forces you to look at your island in a new way, to search for sources of food that you had previously overlooked or disdained. You turn your attention to the birds. The island is a nesting ground for gulls, terns, and other seabirds. In the past, you have lived alongside them, occasionally annoyed by their raucous cries, but largely untroubled by their presence. Now, you look at them with the eyes of a predator. You know that they lay eggs, and that eggs are a source of rich, life-sustaining protein. The task of gathering the eggs is a difficult and unpleasant one. The birds build their nests on the most inaccessible cliffs and ledges, and they are fiercely protective of their young. As you approach their nesting grounds, they rise into the air in a screaming, chaotic cloud, diving at you, their sharp beaks jabbing at your head and hands. You are forced to wear your heaviest coat and a thick hat for protection, and you carry a long stick to wave them away. You feel like a thief, an invader, and you are filled with a sense of guilt and shame. But the hunger is a more powerful force than the guilt. You carefully take only 1 or 2 eggs from each nest, leaving the others for the birds to raise. It is a small, perhaps meaningless gesture of respect, an attempt to maintain some semblance of your role as a steward, even as you act as a plunderer. The eggs are a welcome, if temporary, reprieve. They are small and have a strong, fishy taste, but they are food. They give you a much-needed boost of energy and morale, but they are not a long-term solution. The nesting season is short, and soon the eggs will hatch, and this resource will be gone. Your desperation drives you to even more extreme measures. You set snares for the rabbits that live on the island. You have never bothered with them before. They are small, bony, and difficult to catch. But now, the sight of a rabbit hopping through the coarse grass is enough to make your mouth water. You fashion snares from pieces of wire and twine, placing them on the rabbit trails that crisscross the island. You check them each morning with a sense of grim anticipation. For days, the snares are empty, and then one morning you find one. A small brown rabbit, its life ended by your desperate ingenuity. The process of skinning and cleaning the small animal is a somber one. It is a stark, brutal reminder of the reality of survival, of the thin line that separates life and death. The red tide has done more than just make you hungry. It has fundamentally altered your relationship with your environment. The island is no longer a place of peaceful coexistence. It has become an arena, a place of conflict and competition. You are no longer living with nature, you are fighting against it. The sense of balance and harmony that you once felt has been replaced by a sense of struggle, of a constant, wearying battle for survival. The psychological toll is immense. The constant hunger, the anxiety about your dwindling food supply, the guilt of your actions, it all combines to create a heavy, oppressive weight on your spirit. You find it harder to focus on your duties. The simple act of polishing the lens seems pointless when your stomach is aching with emptiness. You begin to question your ability to survive. You have always prided yourself on your self-sufficiency, on your ability to live off the land. But the land and the sea have betrayed you. You are a king who has been deposed, a master whose subjects have rebelled. As you look out at the dead, brown water, a terrifying thought enters your mind. What if the red tide never goes away? What if the fish never come back? What if your desperate makeshift measures are not enough? What is the final, ultimate resource for a man trapped on a barren rock? The ultimate resource, you discover, is not found in the sea or on the land. It is found within yourself. It is the stubborn, irrational, and deeply human refusal to give up. It is the will to endure even when all seems lost. As your physical strength wanes, as the gnawing hunger becomes a permanent feature of your existence, you find yourself drawing on a different kind of strength, a deep, hidden reserve of mental and spiritual fortitude that you never knew you possessed. The turning point comes not with a dramatic event, but with a quiet internal shift. You are sitting at your table one evening, staring at your meager meal. A single, rubbery gull's egg and a small, boiled piece of rabbit meat. You are consumed by a profound sense of despair. You feel defeated, broken by the relentless, indifferent forces of nature. You look out the window at the murky, lifeless sea, and you see a reflection of your own inner state. And in that moment of absolute hopelessness, something inside you rebels. A small, defiant spark ignites in the darkness. You will not be beaten. You will not let this island, this ocean, this red tide be the end of you. You are a keeper of the light. It is your job to defy the darkness, both literal and metaphorical. With this newfound resolve, you begin to act with a renewed sense of purpose. You are no longer just reacting to the crisis. You are actively managing it. You take a full inventory of your remaining supplies. You count every bag of flour, every tin of salted meat, every single dried bean. You create a strict, detailed rationing plan, calculating the minimum number of calories you need to consume each day to remain functional. Your life becomes a matter of grim mathematical precision. You weigh your food on a small scale and you record your consumption in your logbook, alongside the weather and the state of the lamp. It is a logbook not just of a lighthouse, but of a siege. You also begin to think about your island in a new way. You are not a hunter, you are a farmer. You realize that you cannot rely on the unpredictable bounty of the wild. You must create your own, more reliable sources of food. You have a small, sheltered patch of soil behind your cottage, a place where you have, in the past, attempted to grow a few hardy vegetables with limited success. The salt spray and the poor, rocky soil have always been a challenge, but now you attack this challenge with a desperate, focused intensity. You spend days building a low stone wall around the patch of ground, a barrier against the wind. And the salt. You gather seaweed not to eat but to compost to enrich the poor soil. You create a small, precious garden, a tiny oasis of cultivation in the wild, untamed landscape of the island. You plant the few seeds you have, some potatoes, some hardy greens, some onions. You water them with your carefully rationed fresh water, and you tend to them with the same meticulous care that you give to the lamp. The garden becomes the new focus of your life. It is a symbol of hope, of a future. You watch it each day with an almost paternal devotion. The first sight of a green shoot pushing its way up through the dark soil is a moment of profound, almost religious joy. It is a sign that life can still flourish, that your efforts are not in vain. It is a small green flag of defiance against the dead, brown sea. And then one morning you wake up and you notice a change in the air. The wind has shifted. It is blowing from a different direction, a clean, fresh breeze from the open ocean. You go outside and you look at the water, and for the first time in months, you can see a patch of clear, blue-green water on the horizon. The red tide is breaking up. The clean, oxygen-rich water of the deep ocean is pushing the toxic algae away from the coast. Over the next few days, the transformation is miraculous. The murky, brown water is replaced by the familiar, vibrant colors of the healthy sea. The gulls, which had been strangely silent, return with their raucous, joyful cries. You go down to the rocks at low tide, and you see that the mussels are beginning to open and close, their siphons filtering the clean water. You cast a line from your fishing spot and you feel a familiar, powerful tug. You pull in a large, healthy-looking cod, its silver scales gleaming in the sunlight. The larder is open for business again. The relief is so profound that it is almost painful. It is a physical sensation, a loosening of a knot that has been tied in your gut for months. You cook the fish, and you eat it with a sense of reverence, of deep, heartfelt gratitude. It is the most delicious meal you have ever tasted. The experience has changed you. You are thinner, your face is more gaunt, but your eyes hold a new kind of wisdom, a new depth. You have faced the worst that your isolated existence can throw at you, and you have survived. You have learned the true meaning of self-sufficiency. It is not just about knowing how to fish or forage. It is about knowing how to endure. It is about the ability to find resources not just in the world around you, but in the world within you. When the supply tender finally arrives, weeks later, the captain is shocked by your appearance. He listens with a sense of awe as you recount the story of the red tide, of the long, hungry months. He looks at your meticulously kept logbook, at the record of your dwindling supplies and your desperate, ingenious measures. He looks at your small, flourishing garden, a patch of impossible green on the rocky landscape, and he sees not a victim but a hero. You have done more than just survive. You have prevailed. You have kept the light burning even when your own inner light was in danger of being extinguished. You have proven that the most important quality of a lighthouse keeper is not just a steady hand or a watchful eye, but an unbreakable spirit. Your small, rocky island is no longer just a place of duty. It is a place of triumph, a testament to the enduring power of human resilience in the face of an indifferent and often hostile world. The life of a lighthouse keeper is a paradox. You are a man of action, a tender of machinery, a warrior against the elements. Your hands are calloused from hauling ropes, your face is weathered by the salt and the sun, and your body is strong from the endless climbing of the tower stairs. but you are also a man of profound stillness, of long, silent hours spent in watchful solitude. The physical demands of your job, while strenuous, are finite. The maintenance is completed, the lamp is lit, the foghorn is silent. And then there is the time, the long, quiet, and often lonely stretches of time that must be filled. It is in these hours that the true challenge of your profession lies. It is a challenge not of the body, but of the mind. How do you keep your mind sharp, your spirit engaged, and the crushing weight of loneliness at bay? For many keepers, the answer lies in a small, precious, and carefully curated collection of books. Your library is not a luxury, it is a necessity. It is as vital to your survival as your stores of food or your barrels of oil. It is your connection to the world you have left behind, your window into the vast, teeming universe of human thought, imagination, and history. It is your silent, steadfast companion against the immense, indifferent silence of the sea. Your library is housed on a set of sturdy wooden shelves, built by your own hands, in a corner of your small stone cottage. It is not a large collection. Space is a luxury you cannot afford, and every object on your island must justify its existence. Each book in your collection has been chosen with care, each one a survivor of a rigorous selection process. They are your desert island discs, your essential companions for a life of profound isolation. The collection is a reflection of your own mind, your own interests, your own quiet passions. At the heart of the collection, there is always the Bible. It is a book that is both a spiritual guide and a practical tool. Its stories of trial, faith, and endurance resonate deeply with your own experience. You read the story of Noah, and you see a reflection of your own struggle against the overwhelming power of the water. You read the Psalms, and you find words to express the awe, the fear, and the reverence that the natural world inspires in you. The physical book itself is a comfort, its familiar weight in your hands, its pages worn soft by the touch of your own fingers and those of the keepers who came before you. Alongside the Bible, there is usually a collection of Shakespeare. The plays are a universe in themselves, a complete cast of human characters to keep you company. You read The Tempest, and you see your own island kingdom in Prospero's enchanted isle. You read King Lear, and you feel the fury of the storm on the heath as a reflection of the gales that batter your own tower. The language of Shakespeare is a rich and complex tapestry, a welcome contrast to the simple, practical language of your daily life. It is a gymnasium for your mind, a place where you can stretch your vocabulary and your imagination. Your library also contains books of a more practical nature. There is The American Practical Navigator by Nathaniel Bowditch, a dense, comprehensive tome filled with tables, charts, and navigational formulas. You are not a sailor, but you are a man of the sea, and you have a deep, professional interest in the science of navigation. You study the charts, you learn the names of the constellations, and you practice calculating latitude and longitude. It is a way of understanding the world of the men whose lives you are protecting. It is a way of seeing your own small light from their perspective, a tiny fixed point in a complex and dangerous world. There is also a collection of books on natural history, an illustrated guide to the birds of North America, a book on marine biology, a treatise on the geology of the New England coast. These books are your field guides, your keys to understanding the intricate, interconnected web of life that surrounds you. You use them to identify the birds that nest on your island, to learn the names of the different kinds of seaweed. You gather to understand the forces that have shaped the very rocks beneath your feet. They transform your island from a simple, barren rock into a place of endless fascination, a living museum waiting to be explored. And then there are the novels. These are perhaps the most precious books in your collection. They are your Escape your transportation to other worlds. There is a well-thumbed copy of Robinson Crusoe, a story that you can relate to in a way that a landsman never could. You understand Crusoe's solitude, his ingenuity, his moments of despair, and his ultimate triumph. There might be the works of Sir Walter Scott, with their tales of adventure and romance in the wild, windswept landscapes of Scotland. Or perhaps you have a copy of 2 Years Before the Mast by Richard Henry Dana Jr., a realistic, unvarnished account of the life of a common sailor, a story that fills you with a deep respect for the men who sail the ships you guide. Each of these books is a friend. You know them intimately. You have read them not once but many times. You know their rhythms, their characters, their secrets. You have your favorite passages, the ones you return to again and again, the ones that offer you comfort or inspiration or a much-needed laugh. In the long, quiet hours of the afternoon, after your duties are done, you settle into your chair by the fire and you open one of these familiar friends. The world of the island recedes and you are gone. You are on a desert island or a battlefield or a whaling ship. You are in the court of a king or the garret of a poet or the laboratory of a scientist. The act of reading is a profound and transformative one. It is an act of defiance against the crushing monotony of your existence. It is a way of populating your solitude, of filling the silence with a multitude of voices. The books are a constant reminder that you are part of a larger conversation, a great, ongoing story of human experience. They are a bulwark against the insidious mental dangers of a life of isolation, the apathy, the depression, the slow creeping madness that can come from too much silence, too much solitude. But your library is a finite resource. The books, though well loved, are limited in number. What happens when you have read them all, not once but a dozen times? What happens when the familiar stories no longer offer the same escape? When the well-known characters no longer feel like fresh company? What happens when the library, your greatest defense against the sea of loneliness, is no longer enough? The moment when your library begins to feel small is a subtle but significant crisis. It is not a sudden event like a shipwreck or a failing foghorn, but a slow, creeping realization. It begins when you find yourself reciting the lines of a novel along with the characters, when the plot twists no longer hold any surprise, when the philosophical arguments of an essay feel less like a discovery and more like a well-rehearsed catechism. The books, your trusted companions, are still there, but their magic has begun to fade. Their ability to transport you to other worlds is diminished, and you are left, more starkly than ever, in your own. This is a dangerous time. The walls of your cottage, which once felt like a cozy, protective shell, now begin to feel like the bars of a cage. The rhythmic, predictable sounds of your existence, the ticking of the clock, the sigh of the wind, the distant cry of the gulls, which were once a source of comfort, now begin to feel like a maddening, monotonous loop. The solitude, which you had learned to manage and even to cherish, now threatens to become a true and terrifying loneliness. You are a man adrift, not on the sea, but in a vast, empty ocean of time. Your first response is to try to reread your books in a different way. You become a scholar, a critic. You read not for pleasure but for analysis. You take a pencil and a notebook and you begin to deconstruct the texts. You analyze Shakespeare's use of iambic pentameter. You trace the theological arguments in the letters of St. Paul. You map out the narrative structure of Robinson Crusoe. You are no longer a passive recipient of the story. You are an active participant in its construction. This intellectual exercise provides a temporary reprieve. It gives your mind a new problem to solve, a new way to engage with the familiar material. It is a way of wringing the last few drops of novelty from a well-squeezed cloth. But even this has its limits. There are only so many times you can analyze the same sonnet, only so many ways you can interpret the same parable. The sense of intellectual claustrophobia begins to return. You crave something new, something unexpected. A new voice, a new idea, a new story. Your mind, starved of fresh stimulus, begins to turn in on itself. You find yourself lost in long, circular, and often melancholy trains of thought. You dredge up old memories, old regrets, old grievances. The past becomes a more vivid and more populated place than the present. This is a dangerous path, a descent into a state of mind that is not conducive to the sharp, focused attention that your job requires. It is in this state of profound intellectual hunger that you begin to look forward to the arrival of